Well, folks, today I'm here on behalf of my ego, I guess. I'm here to defend the ego. Now, that sounds weird because normally you're supposed to destroy your ego, right? But I'm here to defend it. So you're probably thinking, what kind of asshole are you, Tony, to defend ego instead of trying to murder it? Well, let me explain. You know how people have their psychedelic experiences and they're like, I had an ego death, guys. Holy shit. Right? Sounds pretty amazing. So what the hell is an ego and why do we have it and why do we want to murder it? Right? Okay, well, I guess this will be a very metaphysical video. So, let's make a few assumptions, because when we talk about metaphysics or when we talk about really anything, you're really just making assumptions, you know? Because no one really knows anything. But let's make some assumptions. So you go down the route of like your piece of meat, you die, and then that's it. You just don't exist anymore, right? And then there's another philosophy of the fact that we have a soul or an awareness, right? Let's go down that route. Let's make that assumption that our awareness lives on after your body dies, right? So then you think, oh shit, okay, well, wow, I guess I'm a soul. That's interesting. And then you kind of come to the realization that, oh shit, I'm just like an eternal soul. This is insane. What the fuck do I do with my time? It's a lot of time to spend in eternity, right? An eternity, holy shit. Can you imagine realizing an eternal soul? It's kind of fucked up because you realize that's a lot of time. What am I going to do for an eternity, right? Because you think, oh, I'm just going to be in bliss. I'm just going to have an eternity. Do you know how boring an eternity of bliss would be? What are you doing? I'm just in bliss. Just always in bliss. Hey, Tony, what's up? Nothing. Just in bliss. Just always in bliss. Do you get where I'm going at that? So this idea of an earth life, which seems like fucking hell a lot of the times, is pretty amazing. But it is horrible, but it's amazing. Now, it's only amazing in context. If all you ever had was just one earth life, and it was hell, you would think, what a fucking waste. But if you're an eternal soul, and you have a human life that's kind of like hell and miserable, it's kind of amazing. Because it's just a small little experience, right? It's just a small, tiny little experience. And plus, it's amazing to feel hell or pain, misery, or struggle when all you've experienced is infinite years of bliss, right? But if you're this eternal soul living in some special dimension of bliss, how the hell do you come to Earth to experience this shit, you know? What's the process? Oh, I just fly down to Earth and experience it. Well, not quite that easily, right? Because you know when people have a psychedelic experience and they're crying because they realize that, you know, once they have their quote-unquote ego death in their psychedelic experience, they realize we're all one. And they're amazed because it's overwhelming because they realize they were never alone and you can never be alone because everything is just one. Which, when you think about it, would kind of make sense because how can there really be separation between two things? What's separating those two things, right? So this dimension of awareness is just one thing. You know, some people call that one thing source. Some people call it God, which is a very iffy term, but hey, you know, it's a term. Some people call it all that is. So there's just this field of awareness right? Well, then if you want to come to Earth to experience this roller coaster of an Earth life that has all these different emotions, how the hell do you do it if everything's just one? It's kind of fucked up, right? Well, here comes the ego that everybody wants to destroy. The evil ego. Now, it's all about perspective. Because if you realize the ego is a gift, you don't want to destroy it anymore. Because it's really the ego that gives us this illusion of separation and identity. Like my ego, like when you're in your ego, you identify with yourself. Like, I'm Tony, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm this and I'm that, and you love to describe yourself. The thing about me is, and it's all about you. Now that might sound egotistical and narcissistic and kind of like gross, look at you talking about yourself. But it's that ego that gives you the separation from the whole. So it's kind of a gift. It's your ability to be just you, to experience all there is to experience from one single point of view. Tony, no one can experience things from my eyes. So I have an individual experience here on earth through my own ego and identity. Now, if I was just merged with all that is, I can't have a separate experience because I realize we're all one. See, that's the biggest mindfuck. Why do you have an ego? So you can experience your own identity. Because do you know how fucked up it would be if I told you, if there's anyone watching this video, how fucked up would it be if I told you you're actually me and I'm actually you? That's kind of fucked up. You're like, what the fuck's the point of anything then? If we're all just one thing. Yeah, right? So it's like this idea is, at some level, we're all this one thing. But then we can come here and have these individual identities so we can experience things from a unique point of view, because you're watching this video, but I can never experience what you experience because you have your own specific experience through your own ego and identity and personality. And same with me. So that's what the ego gives you. You know, this thing that people want to destroy. Now, why do people want to destroy this beautiful gift of the ego that gives you personal identity and gives you this illusion of separation? Because why do people want to destroy it? Well, because like with anything else, it can be, it can be abused. It can be taken advantage of. It can be unbalanced, right? Because if you have an unbalanced ego, it can be destructive. You know, that's where this idea of, when you see someone, you think, well, that person seems kind of like an asshole. They're like living in their own little universe. They're so ignorant of everything around them. It's all about them, me. That can happen. So the idea is you have this beautiful gift of the ego so you can experience separation from the whole and have your own unique identity and experience. But then you also have to keep that balance like everything else, right? So you have your awareness and then you have your ego, and they're two very different things. So it's just about keeping everything in balance. Everything's always about balance. That's the trick. So it's not necessarily that we need to destroy the ego and kill it, because we need the ego to have these illusions of individual experiences on earth. You ever seen someone on earth who's quote unquote had an ego death and they're not interested in anything anymore? They just sit there on a rock and they're like, I'm fine. I just am. That's cool and everything. But you realize when you have like absolutely no ego left, you're just sitting on a rock, not doing much of anything because you're content with just sitting there, which is very similar to living in this eternal bliss. What are you doing? I'm just pure awareness. I've killed my ego and I'm just in eternal bliss. Well, that's cute for a while. Enjoy your eternal bliss because it's beautiful, but how long are you going to do that eternal bliss for? A lifetime? You're going to sit on a rock for an entire life? That's cool. Are you going to come back again and live another life on a rock in eternal bliss? Because if you can experience it, if this dimension of awareness that we all collectively exist in is just an awareness and dimension of love and bliss, do you want to come down on earth and experience the same shit again? Right? Because it's like you're experiencing more of the same stuff. So the idea is you have this ego, you have this separate identity, so you can experience everything there is to experience, not just the bliss. So that's why, from the context of being this eternal, beautiful soul, living a miserable, shitty life on earth might seem miserable and shitty if you think that this is all I have. But when you've been living for eons of times in bliss, this craziness of earth is actually amazing. It's like, holy shit, I'm experiencing pain and misery, and I cut myself and I'm bleeding and I'm like, oh, this hurts. I broke my arm. I hurt my, all these struggles, these pains. It's kind of mind blowing, you know? It's a crazy experience, especially when you ultimately know you're okay if you're this eternal soul or consciousness. So this idea of having an ego is not a bad thing, you know? It's like, I want to do a psychedelic to have an ego death. Well, see, having a momentary ego death, is that a word? Is fine, and that's good. So I think a lot of times when you have these psychedelic experiences, you have like a momentary death of your ego, if you want to say. It kind of wakes you up, and then it gives you that balance again. Because you realize, oh, I see, we're all one. Everything's linked. Everything is one thing. And it's all about, we exist in this eternal dimension of love and bliss, but we come down to earth to experience all there is to experience. All the ups and downs, the pains, the miseries, all the different emotions you get to experience here. And then you appreciate the ego because you're like, oh, I get it why I have the ego. I have the ego so I can have this illusion of separation, because the second your ego, quote unquote, dies, you realize everything is just one. And then you don't play the game anymore, you know? Because the game is much more fun to play when you actually believe the character you're playing. I'm Tony and I'm this. But once I don't believe in the character anymore, it's kind of hard to play the game, right? Because it's like, what am I even playing? That's why when you watch someone play a video game, when they really get into it, they actually believe they're the character and they're having so much fun. Oh my God, I hope I don't die. And you're playing the game and it's so intense. But if you're playing that video game and you're just kind of like, I don't really care. This just doesn't even matter. This is just a silly game and I never die. I'm not going to get hurt. None of this really matters that much. And you just you're not really that into it, not that emotionally invested into it. Because that's what happens when you have an ego. You're emotionally invested and locked into this game. You know? Because when you kill your ego, you're like, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Oh, this happened. It doesn't matter. So you're just not as emotionally invested in the game. So the ego gives you the ability to really feel everything there is to experience here on earth, because you're not detached from the experience. So the ego is an amazing gift as long as you can just keep it in balance. And remember, even if you don't keep it in balance and you're a complete shithead and you're super egotistical, it's all about you and fuck everybody else, it's me against the world, even that is actually an interesting experience. You're not a bad person. You have that experience and then again, make the assumption that you're this eternal soul, and after this life, you realize, oh wow, I had that crazy experience where I was so into my ego, I lived this self-centered life, but it was an experience, and everyone is ultimately fine if we're this quote-unquote eternal soul, so everything's good. So we just come here to experience all there is to experience, even the fucked up shit. None of it is technically bad, because even if you experience something fucked up, you're an asshole in a life, and in another life you were good, bad, it doesn't really matter. We're just here to experience anything there is to experience. And that's what the ego gives you, that gift. And that's it. So that's my idea of the ego that people want to destroy. It can be your best friend and also your worst enemy if you let it control you too much. It's really all up to you. And that's it. So I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.